And what are you writing now? What's it called?
Well, the working title's Middlesex / Codeine Linctus.
You've been working on that since I've known you.
I've been working on that about 20 years. Yeah.
And where's it all going to end?
In the courts, probably. I've written an enormous amount recently, but I'm not prepared to divulge what. I don't like talking about my writing until it's reached a certain stage. There's nothing that distracts you more from working than talking about it.
Of course. And is that how you were able to finish Scarp? By not talking about it?
Yeah. Yeah, I play my cards close to my chest, and I put some little bits and pieces up on Facebook to sort of try out sort of little sections. It's quite a demonic book, it's quite dark.
Have you heard of the word writung?
No.
It's about this discovery of the sort of devil within, the evil. This guy called Paul Levy's written a whole book about it. What do you see this, what essentially is evil? How do you see it manifesting itself?
Did I say evil?
I think you said, what was the word you used?
Can't remember.
Demonic.
Yeah, I think there's a sort of demonic quality to the writing. Yeah, I visit the dark underworlds in Middlesex, basically.
What are the dark... So Scarp was all about the...
Scarp was sort of like a bit frothy and frivolous here and there, and a little bit twee, in my opinion. This is far more concerned with things like domestic violence, drug addiction, murder, sexual abuse, including sexual abuse of minors, deaths of animals on roads, fatal fires, and kind of like quivering dark presences that you find in the landscape.
And how will that help?
Anybody.
Well, how does that help you?
Well, I don't know if it does.
And
I've realised, and this is a really hackneyed piece of psychoanalysis, but it does fit as it happens. I found when I look back on what I write that I'm actually dealing with my anxieties in some kind of way. Even anxieties I didn't realise I had exactly.
It's such a healthy channel, isn't it? To write the
I
angst.
Fly when I'm writing. I absolutely fly, and I only write for one person. I don't write for anyone else, and that's always the condition under which I write. I have to write beautifully and well enough to fulfil my purposes.
You must love yourself to do that.
Yeah, I suppose I don't really have any sense of loving myself. I like to think I'm a loving person.
Is it a form of self-connection, an absolute...
No, it's what Ted Hughes calls accessing the elemental power circuit of the universe.
Why is that important?
Well, it's important to me because I don't trust the manifest world around me. I want to sort of like see where the cracks are and see what's really going on.
The other night I had the experience of the earth cracking open, or maybe it was me. Is that an important step towards self-enlightenment or self-fulfillment?
I have no idea. I'm not really interested in concepts like self-enlightenment and things like that.
So where the cracks, why are they important?
Because they alert me to what the game is, because I want to draw other people's attention to them. I'm talking about the kind of clicking on-off sort of regulation of the systems that form our critical infrastructure, like sewage or electricity substations, just patiently doing their work, generation by generation by generation, while everyone misses them and goes and shops at Primark or watches Scandi things on television, Scandi Noir or that sort of thing. I'm interested in the death of insects en masse, that we live in a charnel house, basically.
But if someone can actually physically hear the cracking of the earth or some kind of opening, you talk about the cracks in the infrastructure and stuff.
No, I'm talking about cracks in the ideology that makes us accept our environment in certain kinds of functional ways. Whereas what I'm trying to do is alert people to the fact that almost the very shape of the landscape around us is different to how we think it is. Or place. I prefer place, but I mean that's because it's so plastic, you can sort of do anything with it. Landscape is a very culturally specific thing. It's an overview of a large area from a kind of advantageous viewpoint, like a hill.
Is it a kind of deconditioning?
Possibly, it's more like a direct assault. And also there's elements of sort of like trace elements of sort of Essex witchcraft that were taught to me by somebody in prison. There's a system for making money that was taught to me that you can only use in certain conditions, which I've used several times. There's the sort of bringing passion to a kind of pinpoint of pure atomic light, and then using that to penetrate into the world, like a straw going through a potato almost, to produce work of sufficient magnitude, intensity and quality to attain the results that I want to attain.
Do you feel you achieved that with Scarp?
I think I did to some extent, yes. I think Scarp is a remarkable book. I mean, there's a 17-mile long chain of hills running across the north of London. Everyone can see it visually. No one's ever written about it. It has no cultural presence whatsoever. I think it was a real little insight for me to use that as the kind of underpinning. But this current book is far more concerned with stuff like male-female relationships, violence against women, Levi Belfield particularly. What it is about somebody like Levi Belfield, that he can have this enormous power over women at the same time as he's the most disgusting sort of human being. Do you know he used to get his girlfriends to wipe his arse for him?
But kings do that.
Hmm?
Kings do that. They're like grooms of the stool.
Yeah, exactly. Well, he's behaving like a little king. You know, and he was working at Royals, which is now called Liquid, a 1930s cinema in Uxbridge, which has been converted to a dance club. He was plying young girls with Rohypnol and raping them. And we're talking about very young girls. And it just sort of had enormous, but he had enormous power over women as well. They wouldn't leave him. I suspect that they covered for him to some extent. They're certain that woman who was with him at the end suspected him of killing Millie Dowler. She must have done. She must have done. He should never be forgiven for that. Makes me so angry.
He was a great big slug, wasn't he?
Yeah. Real nasty piece of work. There's been suspicions that when he was 12 he murdered a 14-year-old girl that he had a crush on, who was murdered in Feltham. I think they met in Feltham. She was strangled and dumped on Hounslow Heath. Can't remember her name, unfortunately. So
what lighter things are you weaving in?
There's still some Prakriti layer, this sort of fusion with nature technique that the yogic people used. I used to know about all these things, but I can't remember the fine details anymore, which is in Scarp a lot, especially in the section about Gloria Geddes. But the whole idea about Scarp in this current book is that the whole book is actually a Prakriti layer anyway, because I go on this kind of extended soul journey through the environment, and that therefore the writing is a little bit kind of experimental here and there. But there's also very precise observations and analytic pieces of writing as well. I've done a lot of material.